Welcome back, everybody. So this is going to be the watch list for Monday, June 9th. And let's start out with the economic news. So clearly here you can see we have wholesale inventories on Monday. Probably not going to be a huge market mover when it comes to the overall number. We'll probably see a little bit of inventory build as retailers and some companies were stocking up ahead of the actual tariffs going into place. So we'll see how that plays out for April. Again, thinking about that this data, is almost 45 days old because we are looking at April. We're not looking at May. Might not be a lot of move in the numbers there. But then Tuesday, NFIB Optimism Index, that drops before the market opens, so we're safe there. And then the big numbers are coming on Wednesday and Thursday. So it's going to be Consumer Price Index, your CPI, your core CPI, and your year over year. So this is your inflationary gauge as to are the cost of goods and services going up for the American public, okay? So you can see where we're at previously. The median forecast is pretty much no change. Little bit of inflation year over year, but nothing monumental. And then we'll see what the U.S. federal budget deficit is. And we know it's going to be significant, but I would assume by then you're probably done trading for the day. Thursday, another big number of jobless claims. So jobless claims did come in a bit higher than expected last Friday. Unemployment remained unchanged, which was a good news story. But then we're going to see the producer price index and core PPI and the producer price index year over year. So what is that? That is the manufacturer's cost to actually manufacture goods and services. So does it cost the manufacturers more to make whether it's a car or a toy or clothing or whatever it is, whatever they're producing, are those input costs going higher? We'll want to watch that. But that data all drops before the market opens. So those will be your two huge market movers. And then Friday is just consumer sentiment. Now, interestingly, it was way stronger than expected the previous time. Now, the two times before that, it missed by a long shot. So this is kind of that seesaw going back and forth. I feel good about the economy. I don't. I do. I don't. So they weren't feeling good when the market was down 30%. But now that the market is right back where it started on the year, people are like, okay, well, maybe things aren't so bad. So we'll have to watch this overall consumer sentiment as well. But the biggest numbers are going to be on Wednesday and Thursday. Let's take a look at a couple of the names. So we're going to start with the ETFs. I'm going to start with SPY. Clearly bullish activity that we saw on Friday. We pushed the market up high. We pulled it back down to this 597, over the last several days. And now we are reapproaching this magical 600 number, okay? So as we take a look at where we were at on Friday, we had, again, decent jobs numbers. Unemployment remains unchanged. A little bit of volatility in the market between Trump and Elon. How was that going to play out? And then the market, rallied midday all the way back up. And we've been seeing this whipsaw back and forth to the high, to the low, to the high, to the low. And when you look at it on a lower time frame basis, and let's just, go over to Friday, you could see that. And I'm going to actually dial it in more here on a 5-minute. And you can see that that's what the market's been doing all week. So if we come back here even to Thursday, they rally it up, they sell it off, they rally it up, they sell it off, they rally it up, they sell it off. Okay, then we move into the overnight, and then we open up on Friday morning. A lot of strength, sell it off, rally it, sell, rally into the close. So really looking for this 599.63 to hold, to go back long. Above 675 into 602 and 604. Let's go ahead and take a look at QQQ. Again, a lot of movement back and forth with the tech stocks, especially on Friday. Predominantly Google, Microsoft making an all-time high, but it really did mirror SPY, right? So on the morning, they push it up, they sell it off, they push it up, they sell it off. Now we have regained this 530.79, which I would, again, look for us to be able to go long. Now, what is happening as to, why does the market keep selling off once we get to these levels? Again, we're almost back to all-time market highs in at least the SPY. Same thing. We got a couple percentages more to go, but nobody wants to be left at the top holding the bag if there is something that hits the news cycle, okay? So we're going to want to watch this 530.79. Ideally, a better buy is going to be down here at 528, where they just wouldn't let it go any lower. But they can't seem to get back above this 532 into this 533. So you'll note that kind of where they keep stalling out at is at this 531, 532 range. There's just a fair amount of sellers. So let's look at some of the individual names. Apple's been very volatile this week. It's clearly risk on, right? Risk off. They come over, risk on again, risk off, consolidate, risk on, risk off. I mean, this is definitely a name that you can trade back and forth between the channels. So my strongest level has continually been this 202, 52, 202, 67, down to 202 and change, right? And then they'll get down to 201. But every time it gets down here, I mean, they just won't let it really go below 200. And then it comes down and we move back up. And that's a nice, even though it's only a 1% move, it's enough for you to be able to jump into the contracts and ride it higher or ride it lower. Google recovering our level of 171. They're having a little bit of a hard time keeping it above the 50% fib retracement. And that 50% fib is from the all-time high where the market was at all the way down to the tariff low. Okay, so that's kind of why I'm watching this 50 level, right? They get it above, sell it, get it above, sell it. We are now coming right back to that level again. They need to get above this 173.79, really 174.69 to go up to the 618 fib. So keep an eye on Google for some overall strength. Now, Amazon, interestingly enough, gained a ton of strength, and it is now back above its 618 fib level. So again, we're going to just go to Amazon's all-time high, where we're at, all the way to the tariff low. They got us back up here once before, but look at how the candle could not close above the level. Now, that changed this past Friday. They were able to actually get above the level, hold it above the level, and then now start to move forth. So what I would watch as to what do we want to hold. We'll use an interim level here on a 15-minute time frame or even a 5-minute. Really doesn't matter, right? It's just really a shorter duration to say, can they get above this 213.75? And if they can hold this, going up to 215. So I do like the longs there. Let's take a look at Microsoft. Microsoft making all-time highs. If we get a pullback to 468, I think that has some merit to possibly go long. But this thing, again, on a valuation basis, is just insane. And they're just running it up with really no news or no rationalization. So if you get below 468, definitely keep an eye on that one for a potential short. Let's look at Tesla. A lot of news last week between Elon and Trump. Back and forth. Elon did remove a lot of his tweets, which is interesting that he was posting about the president. But this one, same exact thing, right? The market makers were really keeping this in a range. And if you traded with Gus and I during Power Hour on Friday, you'll just see that as soon as they would get it up here to 297, they would sell it off, get it back up, sell it off, right? This 297.68 seems to be a very strong point that they have to get above this to go long up to 300, okay? And then again, above 300, they rocket it higher, support, 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 and then they get this huge failure candle, right? This huge bearish engulfing candle that literally wiped out the entire day's worth of momentum. And this is the market makers balancing the market right before the Friday close. They just dump everything, so whoever was long literally got screwed going into the weekend. So do keep an eye on that one. Let's look at NVDA. NVIDIA, another interesting one, right, where I have this price level of 141.80, but you'll note if you go to a fib on a higher level basis, right, a pivot high to a pivot low, look at where they kept bouncing this thing. My price level's at 141.80, the fib is at 141.66. Soon as it got there, bounce, got there, bounce, got there, bounce, right? But they can't get above it, the 786. So this is, again, I think a great area on Monday, depending upon how the futures are going to open, to definitely go long up to 142. And if they could get above this 618 fib, they could definitely go back up here and test first the pivot high, then my reject zone of 144.37. Saw the same thing with AMD. Actually, AMD was a little bit weaker. So you'll note here when we take a look at this on a higher time frame, let's just go ahead and use the overall 4-hour. They just kept pushing it back and forth between this 114 and all the way up here to this 117, 118 range. But as soon as they got it up, heavy sell. Get it up, heavy sell. They kept selling it down over and over again throughout the day on Friday. So again, just kind of a difficult one because you're not trading between channels and you really don't have any clear defined interim levels. I mean, they just kept wicking this thing up and down, and the volatility was a bit on the high side. Some of the other ones to keep an eye on this week are going to be the airlines. So the airlines got a lot of momentum back again on Friday. If consumer sentiment comes strong, I'm just using a fib level from a pivot high to a pivot low on this and let's look at it on a 4-hour time frame. But you'll be able to see here that where we're at in the current channel, we've recovered the 50. They brought it up here once and already pushed it down. So that's typically bullish in nature, that if they can get above this 51.01 for Delta, pushing up to 51.15 all the way up to $52. So I am going to watch the airlines for actual calls. And then you'll see that also on United Airlines. Same exact thing. They got above a prior pivot that was becoming resistance on 2 separate occasions. They used the floor of 77.39, ran it all the way up to 84. If this thing keeps going, I think we could definitely get up to that 91 range. And then just look at, where this stock was. Again, we were up here at 116. We're trading at about 80 and change. So let's just do a fib from a pivot high to a pivot low, and let's just see where that's going to align for us. And ironically, I mean, pretty right on my number, right on my pivot, right? 84 bucks is my pivot. $84 is the fib from the pivot high to the pivot low. They get above $84. We're going to save this. This one is on watch to the 618. And where's the 618 align with? My price level of 91.64. Again, guys, you can't make this stuff up when you're using price levels in pivots, right? It's just how the market works. And then the last one that we'll look at is going to be American Airlines. American Airlines was the weaker of the three. It was trading all the way up here at 19. We're still down here at a ridiculously low $11. So this one definitely took a haircut to the downside. But we are just about ready to approach a price level of the $11.80. So if we can get above this, go long with maybe a $12 call. So those are some of the things I'm watching, along with whatever's hitting the news. So a lot of you have been asking, Bill, what are you watching? What are you keeping an eye on? I'm watching whatever they're talking about in the mornings on CNBC, or whatever the president is tweeting, or whatever somebody else is talking from an economic scenario perspective is what's really hitting my radar. So you don't have to overcomplicate this, right? We can watch airlines. We can watch specific sectors that are catching momentum. We can watch the chips, specifically with NVDA and AMD. We'll watch QQQ and SPY, but right now we're just seeing a lot of the money pile into the individual names. So with that, everybody, have a phenomenal week, and we will see you all for live trading tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock a.m. With that, happy Sunday, and we'll see you all soon.